Okay, hi, this is Elliot Fishman, and it's 1 o'clock, or no, it's 12 o'clock, and so welcome to Facebook Live. And I apologize for some of you who came yesterday at 1 o'clock. We had our speaker from CNET, Mark Larkin, who was fantastic yesterday. You weren't there, you missed a great talk talking about the future of technology, but focusing on medicine at CNET as we're moving into the health and the wellness. And it was a terrific day with him, and he met with our Dean Rothman, and they ran a little bit late, and so we didn't want to keep postponing the time, so we moved it to today. Now, the topic I picked, and it's an interesting topic, and so if people have any questions or any comments, this will be a good session to look at it. But the topic we picked was to talk about radiology match. So I went online because I wasn't sure what we were talking about exactly. So I went to match.com. I typed in match, and look at that. It's match.com. We believe in love, don't you? View singles. I looked, didn't look like radiology residents or medical students. And then I realized, I was looking at the wrong match. So the match I guess I'm supposed to talk about is the match that happens actually today. That's sort of like the same thing as it's an annual event. It's kind of like Groundhog's Day with Punk's and Tony Phil when he comes out and looks at his shadow and then decides whether it's spring or it's going to be winter for a while longer. In fact, this year he said it was going to be spring. And today in Baltimore, it's 65 degrees when I came to work early this morning. So that Piscatoni Phil, whatever his name is, was really sharp this year so far until it snows next week. But anyway, the match is, many of you are aware of it. It's this barbaric thing that's gone on for like 3 million years. And what happens is trying to figure out a way of how do you decide residents, how do you decide medical students rather going into residencies? How do you do that in an organized way around the country and around the world? And so the match came along. And one has to admit that it's not perfect, but it's probably about as good as you can do. And for some of you who are techs perhaps or nurses who don't know what the match is, what happens is it's an annual event. All the medical students decide what fields they want to go into: internal medicine, surgery, radiology, dermatology, whatever, a million fields. And then they interview. They apply to be interviewed at select institutions. Obviously, the smarter you are, the higher your ranking, GPA, all those wonderful things, you can apply to better places than others. And then you go to all the places you want to go to, you apply, and hopefully they interview you. Just to give you a number, at Hopkins we have about 700 applications. We interview about 100. We end up picking 10. So the numbers are really small. It's a very, very selective process, and people apply to many different institutions. And then what happens is you, the medical student, you'll go to all, wherever you get invited, you'll interview, and then you'll put down your favorites in order. So your number one choice is kind of like the NFL draft. You're saying, well, I want to go to Hopkins, Mass General, Michigan, wherever it is. This is my number one choice. And you put things down in order, and then you fill out the forms and you submit it. That's it. Now, for the institutions like Hopkins, we do the same thing. We interview 100 people, and then we figure out which ones we would like, and then you rank them. Now, you're not going to rank all 100 because some people you interview at Turkey's and you don't want to get those, but you probably rank 70 to 90 people in an order. Again, there's a little bit of gamesmanship. So, for example, deans of medical schools like to ask the department chairman, how low on the ranking did you go? Well, the truth is that's not really a great question, because if you wanted to game the system, and you wanted to say, okay, we're taking 10 residents, we only went to number 10, you would just take a bunch of mediocre people who would die to come to your institution, right? So if you're like a Hopkins, a Stanford, a Mass General, if you want a 10 out of 10, just pick the people sort of in the middle. But what you really want to do is you want to get the 10 best athletes you can get for your institution. And so perhaps if you really rate a lot of people, like, for example, you're in Baltimore, we know that somebody who's from California, from the Bay Area, for example, or San Diego, the chance of them coming to Baltimore is about 0. And you begin to wonder, should you rank them high because the chance of them coming is not going to happen? But on the other hand, you would say, what's the loss? You put them high. If you luck out and they really see why the East Coast should be good, they may come. Okay, so that's a good idea. But then, of course, is if you rated them based on really what they were, not of the chance of you getting them, you might go to 40 or 50 to fill your 10 slots. And then it makes it seem to the dean, perhaps, that you're a crappy department, and it took 50 different people to finally fill in your slots. So it's a little bit of gamesmanship. So it is a challenge. And so what happens is everybody at the same time, I think it's maybe 1 o'clock today on the East Coast, will get an envelope. And that envelope will say where they're going for the next, anywhere between 3 to 5 years, depending on the length of residency. And then Hopkins and every other institution will then get a list of all the people who are coming to see us a year from now. So this will be the starting class of July 2020. So remember, excuse me, everybody has to do their internship. So that'll be July 2019. And then the residency will be the 20 years. So that's what we're looking at. For a lot of people, it's very stressful, I think, because no matter how good you are, you never know what's in that envelope. That envelope is like the Academy Awards. Maybe you win, maybe you don't win. And I think for a lot of people also, it's not clear what their number one choice should be. There's a bunch of different choices, family reasons, academic reasons. And so they kind of pick, and then they hope to know where they're going to end up. The thing about it is there's no backing out. So it's not like you can say, well, I drafted this guy, I'm going to trade him for 2 other players on a different team and throw in a few bucks and a few little Gutenberg shoes, and I'll get somebody else. No. When you got that person, you got that person. That's it. There's no messing around. So the system is really very fixed. And it's not a perfect system, but it is one that seems to do well. And again, for the academic institutions, for Hopkins, whether we get these 10 or the next 10, we're going to get really good people. So it's not that big a deal for us. It's kind of just curious what you did or didn't do. But for the individual person, it's really big. And all of a sudden, there's an emoji. If you look at CTisus Facebook page, Dr. Z has this really good emoji on the matches. Very, very funny. I posted it yesterday. But it's true. You think you're going to Buffalo, New York, which is your first choice, and you end up going to Buffalo, Texas, which is your 100th choice. So it does work out. And I think this year, I'm told that essentially all the radiology slots filled. Radiology the last couple of years has been in high demand. A few years before that, it was in relatively low demand. Slots went unfilled, but radiology has had new life breathed into it. And even though some people are kind of paranoid about AI, the answer is that the jobs are going to be there, and we will succeed with AI. And AI is surely coming. But this class actually, it comes in 2020, finishes 2024, 25, will surely be a class where AI is going to play a major role. So let's see, Mohammed Metali is calling in from Egypt, and John Biaquinos are calling in from across the street. So that, I think John's further away if I have to go around the globe the other way. So John's here and I'm here. We'll go the long way. But great to speak to people from Italy and Egypt. And I think, and I could stand corrected, but I think a lot of the other institutions around the world also do a very similar thing. Now, the match has been the thing for the residency. And on the fellowship side, there's been some of the ACME different programs have used matches for fellowship with the idea, again, the same thing, trying to make things easier. They've talked about it for body imaging, and it's a one-year program. It's never succeeded. They're going to try it again. And the reason is people want to go where they want to go. But also, if we do a fellowship match, we got to interview many more people. We have to rate them. They have to rate us. They got to interview in more places. They don't know what they're going to get. It's really a challenge. We've argued about this for years. And again, it started. And this time, I think we've agreed that, for example, nobody will interview for the class of 2021 till December 1st, which is, guess what, RSNA. So that means you're going to be wasting your time in RSNA interviewing a mess of people, because you can't interview till December 1st, but you can see somebody and make them an offer the same day. So I think RSNA is going to be filled with swarming residents trying to figure out where the meeting place is so they can get their fellowship interview. The downside, of course, is you're going to be interviewing in McCormick Place, you're going to be interviewing your hotel, in the lobby, wherever you're going to interview. But the people are not going to have the same breadth. They're not going to see your equipment. They're not going to see your physical space. They're going to have to take you by reputation, which, maybe that's all that really matters. But it is going to be somewhat challenging. We've been talking a little bit about it because, RSNA is very busy. It's very hectic. The last thing I want to interview is like 20 or 50 candidates for fellowship. It's stressful on them. That means they're going from interview to interview, like it was a bad job day. And for us, it's trying to make decisions really rapidly and without showing our best stuff, which is our other people and our physical plant and everything else. So I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I am not a big believer. I'm a believer in starting a certain time and maybe not starting too early. The impetus was many schools, particularly those places in Boston, that were interviewing people, or Chicago interviewing people when they were barely finishing their second year. And every year it got earlier and earlier. Soon we're going to have to interview people before they did their radiology residency. They weren't even accepted into radiology residency. We'd be interviewing them. So we'd be predating the predate of the predate. So it would not be a really good strategy and not a good one for getting the best people you want. In terms of the match, people have looked at many, many ways of doing it differently. I think the challenge is there's not that many ways to do it. If we let all comers just do and you offered it to whoever you want, when you want it, usually the problem is not everyone can interview through. You might take people who aren't deserving because you haven't been able to do the whole pool. And if there isn't, you want to see the whole pool, then you got to get people to come early. I think one big problem with this coming early is just physically people getting there. It's expensive to travel. It's very time consuming. Residents don't have much time off. Fellows don't have much time off. So it's really a challenge. And again, the key thing is we want to make certain that we get the best people possible. So our fellowships, our residencies are very important to us. And so these processes, which seem to be at times a bit more complicated than necessary, become very important to us. And that's why we don't take it very lightly. Now, let's see. Francis Gary says, suggestions of international medical graduates wanting to apply for radiology in the U.S. What does Hopkins care the most when selecting the new residents? Well, what I think what you can do is if you want a resident, I'm going to tell you this, just between you and me, nobody's listening. If you want a radiology residency at Hopkins, if you bribe the guy from the crew team, from our boat team, the crew, just like USC, I mean, you can be on the crew team. If you're really good at crew, for the radiology crew team. We also have a radiology badminton team. Was that backgammon or badminton? It's something with a B. Maybe it's basketball. So we used to play basketball here, and George Sabo was the program director. And I'm telling you, we used to have to play other people. If you were really good at basketball, I bet George Sabo would have taken you. Or if you were really good at tennis, we would have taken you. So we don't have a tennis coach anymore. We don't have a basketball team anymore. And our crew team is not so good. But if you are really good and you get a picture of you maybe rowing or something, lifting weights, that may help you. It may not help you either. But in all seriousness, I think that what we care about picking residents, we want really smart people who want to work really hard, people who want to be part of a strong team, and we want people who are going to be successful. I think we are really want to move radiology forward. So if you come and say, well, you have a really good track record of doing innovative things that we think you're going to do wonderful, you're a nice person, that's really what's critical. I mean, for us, what's exciting is people doing well. We hate to have residents who just simply come here and just kill 4 years. They're okay at reading films, but their excitement level is the excitement of like flat line. We want people who are excited, not that they're crazed. We want people who really want to be doing their best. We want excellence. If you ask Steve Jobs what it took to work for Steve, it was a passion. He wanted people with a passion. If you were good and you had no passion, he would not hire you. If you look at companies from Google to Facebook to Amazon to Pixar, when they look at hiring, they have a lot of interviews because they want people who are really good, who have a passion, who won't quit when they have the first setback. We don't want people who complain. If they're single, do not complain. We hate people who complain. All of us complain. I'm complaining to you right now about complaining about people who complain. That's still complaining. But we perhaps, if you're like a big complainer, that's really wearing. People complain a lot. It's wearing. You really don't like people who complain. You want people who are looking at the positive. You want people who, if there's a problem, they're going to try to work the problem out, not just simply complain about it. So hopefully that does help. I guess, with the radiology residencies, the good news is, or maybe the bad news is, no one's tried to bribe me. It probably wouldn't help. No one listens. I don't have anything to do with choosing residents. Fellows, if you want to bribe me, we probably can do it. But we have the crew team, the weightlifting team, basketball team, badminton team. So, if you're really good at any of those things, got a picture, you never know. You never know. Anyway, well, some of you probably are going to get your selections today. So we wish everyone that they get the choice they want. And we also hope that the 10 or 11 people we get at Hopkins are all people who are good rowers, basketball players, and good sense of humor, work hard, and they're not pain in the asses. And with that, I wish you a great day and have a good weekend. And hopefully it'll be nice. Thanks a lot. See you later.